How do you maneuver through those dark hallways?
Faith. Thank God that I got it, but it's in my DNA.
For nearly 40 years, Tricia Lucus was by Toby Keith's side, through the highs of his country music career and the lows of his battle with stomach cancer. When he passed away in early 2024, fans around the world mourned, but Tricia kept her grief private. Now, for the first time, she's ready to speak.
His music, his generosity, and his humanity will outlive not only us, but our children and their children.
Toby and Tricia's love story began long before he became a country music star. They met when they were just two young people working at an oil company, long before fame and fortune entered the picture. Tricia was only 19, and from the moment she met Toby, she was drawn to his bold personality.
Toby will live and be loved forever through his music and the legacy that he's left. And I'm so thankful and so grateful to have spent the time, 43 years with him.
Even back then, he had the kind of confidence that would later command stadiums. But in that moment, it was Tricia who was completely captivated. Their relationship didn't begin in the spotlight. It started in the oil fields of Oklahoma, where Toby had a tough, physically demanding job. Right out of high school, he entered the oil industry in 1979, a time when the field was booming. The work was exhausting and often dangerous, but it provided a stable income, which was essential for someone trying to build a secure future. Toby earned about $50,000 a year, a solid wage at the time, but the job was grueling, and his heart wasn't in it. Music had always been his passion. He played gigs with his band, Easy Money, blending country and rock into a style of his own. But music wasn't paying the bills, and as tough as the oil job was, it gave him financial security. Tricia, working as a secretary at the same company, saw something in him beyond his day job. She recognized his drive, his ambition, and that magnetic personality. Before long, they grew close, not just over shared workdays, but over their dreams for the future. Toby's goal of making it in music was clear, and even though it seemed far away, Tricia believed in him. She wasn't just his partner in life, she became his biggest supporter. Like many young couples, they faced their share of struggles. Money was tight. Toby's oil job provided some stability, but balancing his passion for music meant juggling both worlds. He worked long hours in the oil fields and then spent his evenings and weekends playing in local bars. Tricia stood by him through it all, supporting him even when it seemed unlikely that music would ever pay off. They weren't living comfortably, but their bond grew stronger through the tough times. From the start, what made Toby and Tricia different was their shared determination. They both wanted something better, and they were willing to work for it. Toby wasn't content with staying in the oil industry. Music was his true calling, and Tricia never wavered in her belief that he could make it. Even when money was scarce and music seemed like an uncertain path, she encouraged him to keep going. She saw his potential when others might have told him to stick with the safe route. Their relationship took a major step forward in 1984 when Toby and Tricia got married. It wasn't just the start of their marriage. It was the foundation of the family they would build. Tricia already had a daughter, Shelley, from a previous relationship, and Toby welcomed her as his own from the beginning. He stepped into the role of father, showing that family was just as important to him as his dreams of stardom. After their marriage, they had two more children, Crystal, born in 1985, and Steelen, born in 1997. For Toby and Tricia, family was everything. They didn't just want success, they wanted to create a loving, stable home for their children, and they made that their priority. Even when the odds seemed against them, Toby's music career was still in its early stages, and they weren't living in luxury. But despite their financial struggles, They made things work. They didn't need much, just each other and their family. That's what kept them going through the hardest times. Their early years together were shaped by hard work, long hours, and a shared commitment to building a future. Tricia never lost faith in Toby's dreams, and Toby never stopped chasing them, even when they seemed out of reach. Their love wasn't based on fame or fortune. It was built on shared goals, mutual respect, and the kind of unwavering support that could withstand anything. Toby Keith's path to country music stardom didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't easy. But through all the challenges, one thing remained constant. Tricia Lucus was by his side. She supported him at every step, even when success felt far away. Toby always had the dream of making it big, but without Tricia's belief in him, his journey might have been very different. In the early days, Toby was just starting to make a name for himself in music. He formed the band Easy Money and played local gigs, blending country and rock in a way that made him stand out. Inspired by groups like Alabama, he had a sound full of energy and personality. His voice and stage presence caught attention, but music still wasn't enough to support his family. While Toby performed in bars and small venues, he kept working in the oil fields to provide for his family. It was a tough balance, working long shifts during the day and playing music at night. These were exhausting times, but he never gave up on his dream, and Tricia never stopped believing in him. She knew he had something special, and she was willing to make sacrifices to help him pursue it. During these years, life wasn't easy for Toby and Tricia. Financially, they struggled. Toby's oil job provided steady income, but it wasn't enough to create the life they envisioned, and playing music didn't bring in much money either. There were times when they barely got by, but through it all, Tricia remained his biggest supporter. She encouraged him to keep going, even when sticking with the security of the oil industry would have been the easier choice. Tricia believed in Toby's talent, and that belief kept him going, even when self-doubt crept in. Financial troubles weren't their only hurdle. Toby's passion for music often kept him away from home, either working or performing. Tricia took care of their growing family, raising their children while Toby pursued his dream. It would have been easy for her to resent the long hours and the uncertainty of their future, but instead, she stood by him. She understood that music wasn't just a hobby for Toby, it was his calling. As Toby's reputation grew locally, he started making trips to Nashville, the center of the country music industry. But Nashville wasn't welcoming at first. He faced rejection after rejection as he tried to get record labels interested in his demo tapes. Each trip back home without a deal was discouraging. With every failed attempt, the dream seemed more distant, but Tricia refused to let him give up. After every setback, she reminded him of his talent and potential, lifting him back up when he felt defeated. Toby's trips to Nashville were tough, but Tricia played a key role in keeping his spirits high. She was the one who helped him push forward when he was ready to give up. He often spoke about how her unwavering faith in him was what kept him going through those difficult times. Tricia's belief in Toby wasn't just emotional support, it was the driving force behind his determination to succeed in music. The breakthrough he had been waiting for finally came through an unexpected connection. Toby had been performing regularly at a club in Oklahoma City, playing there every 8 weeks. During one of his shows, he befriended the club manager, who happened to have a nephew with ties to the music industry. That nephew arranged a meeting for Toby, setting the stage for the opportunity he had been waiting for. The pressure was intense as Toby approached this defining moment. He was nearing his 30th birthday, and he had promised himself that if he didn't make it in music by then, he would walk away and focus on a more stable career. But just days before that deadline, Toby got a call that changed everything. His demo tape, the same one that had been rejected time and time again, had finally reached the right person. The person who listened to it was immediately interested, and Toby was invited to perform 2 sets in a showcase. This was the moment he had spent years working toward, a chance to prove he had what it took to make it in the industry. For Tricia, this moment was just as significant. She had stood by Toby through all the hardships and disappointments, and now their perseverance was beginning to pay off. She had believed in him when no one else did, and now the world was about to see what she had seen in him all along. The performance was a success, and soon after, Toby secured a record deal. With that, everything changed. His music career took off, and the financial struggles that had weighed on them for so long began to fade. But Tricia's role in his success cannot be overlooked. She was the one who kept him grounded, pushed him forward when times were tough, and believed in him even when he was ready to give up. By the early 1990s, Toby Keith was on the verge of a major breakthrough. His dedication to a music career, with Tricia standing by him through it all, was finally beginning to pay off. The defining moment arrived in 1993 when Toby released his first big hit, Should Have Been a Cowboy. This song completely changed the course of Toby's career. At a time when country music was already filled with talented artists, Should Have Been a Cowboy didn't just gain attention, it launched Toby into stardom. Inspired by a light-hearted moment during a hunting trip, the song struck a chord with audiences. It embodied the cowboy spirit and the romanticized vision many Americans had of the Old West. Toby's voice and style had a raw and genuine quality that made the song stand out. Before long, it reached the top of the country charts and became an anthem for fans. This wasn't just a breakthrough. It firmly established Toby as one of the biggest names in the industry. For Tricia, it must have felt surreal to see the man she had supported for so long finally getting the recognition he had worked so hard for. As Toby's career took off, their personal lives changed as well. Tricia, who had always valued their private life, now found herself adjusting to sudden public attention. Toby was no longer just a local performer. He had become a household name. Even as Toby's success grew, Tricia made sure their children were shielded from the pressures that came with having a famous father. She ensured their home remained a safe and private space, where family always came first. Toby himself has spoken about how Tricia kept him grounded during those fast-moving years. While the excitement of fame was undeniable, it could also be overwhelming. In moments when Toby needed a reminder of what truly mattered, Tricia was always there to bring him back to reality. She took pride in his achievements, but she also made sure he never lost sight of their family and their life together. Through it all, Tricia remained his steady foundation, reliable, supportive, and always keeping things in perspective. One of the defining moments in Toby's career came after the tragic events of September 11, 2001. Like the rest of the nation, Toby was deeply affected by the attacks, and he poured those emotions into a song that would become one of his most recognizable, Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. Written in just 20 minutes, the song was an unfiltered, patriotic response to the attacks, resonating deeply with listeners who were still grappling with the aftermath. It became a rallying cry for American pride and military support, solidifying Toby's reputation as one of country music's most outspoken figures. For Tricia, this was another moment of great pride. She had always believed in Toby's ability to connect with people through his music, but this was on a completely different level. The song became an anthem, leading to invitations for Toby to perform for troops and at significant national events. Although the song stirred controversy in some circles, Tricia remained by his side, supporting him as he took a stand through his music. Through all the ups and downs, she was there, helping Toby navigate the challenges that came with being a public figure and a voice for so many. Meanwhile, life at home carried on. Raising their children while Toby's career reached new heights wasn't easy, but Tricia found a way to balance everything. Crystal was following in her father's footsteps, pursuing her own music career, while Steelen was carving out a path in business. Even as Toby's schedule grew more demanding, Tricia made sure their home life remained as normal as possible. They weren't just a celebrity family, they were a real family, and Tricia made sure their children always understood that. In 2021, the Keith family was dealt a devastating blow when Toby was diagnosed with stomach cancer. For a man known for his resilience, strength, and energy, this diagnosis was a life-altering moment. The news was difficult not just for Toby, but for the entire family. Tricia, who had stood by him through every stage of his career, now found herself by his side in a far more personal and painful battle. When they first learned of the diagnosis, the shock was overwhelming. Toby had always been full of life, with a commanding presence on stage and a seemingly limitless supply of energy. The idea that he was facing such a serious illness was difficult to process, not only for his fans, but also for those closest to him. More than anyone, Tricia understood just how serious this was, and the emotional toll on her was enormous. She had always been the one to support Toby through difficult times, but this was different. This time, everything was on the line. Despite her own pain, Tricia quickly stepped into the role of Toby's primary caregiver, all while managing her own emotions about what was happening to the man she had loved for nearly 4 decades. It was far from easy. There were moments when the weight of it all seemed unbearable. But as she had done so many times before, Tricia remained strong for Toby. She knew he needed her now more than ever, and she was determined to be there for him in every way possible. Behind closed doors, Tricia witnessed the full reality of his illness. Away from the public eye, Toby's fight with cancer was brutal. The treatments were physically draining, and the emotional strain of battling such a serious disease was heavy on both of them. But through it all, they leaned on each other. For Tricia, faith played a significant role in helping her navigate this incredibly difficult time. She believed in Toby's strength, and that belief helped her through the hardest times. Their shared faith gave them something to hold on to as they faced the uncertainty of his illness. Toby often spoke about how much Tricia's unwavering support meant to him throughout his life. During his battle with cancer, that support took on new meaning. It was no longer just about his career, it was about holding on to hope in the face of something beyond their control. Tricia later reflected on the quiet moments that no one else saw, where it was just the two of them finding peace in the middle of so much uncertainty. Their bond grew even stronger during this time. They had been through a lot together, but nothing compared to the closeness they shared in those final months. Toby accepted his illness, but that didn't mean he gave up. Instead, he focused on spending time with Tricia, their children, and their close family. He knew his time was limited, and he wanted to make the most of it. Tricia stood by him every step of the way, offering love and support, just as she always had. Toby Keith passed away on February 5, 2024, after battling stomach cancer for nearly 3 years. His final days were difficult, not just for him, but for everyone who loved him. His illness had taken a physical toll, weakening the man who had once commanded stages with such energy. The emotional weight of knowing time was running out was heavy, especially for Tricia, who had been by his side through it all. In those last moments, his family came together to say their goodbyes. They knew what was coming, but that didn't make it any easier. Tricia, their children, and close family members gathered around him, finding comfort in being together during such a painful time. For Toby, being surrounded by the people he loved most brought him peace as he prepared to say goodbye. In the months after Toby's passing, the world heard little from Tricia. While fans and the country music community shared tributes, she chose to grieve privately. It wasn't until much later that she spoke about her loss, their life together, and how she planned to carry on his legacy. What are your thoughts on Tricia's tribute? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.